as a fan of an AFC North team that is not the Baltimore Ravens, the contract situation with Lamar Jackson has been very interesting to follow. I haven't made a video on it yet, and reasons that I'll get to in a second, but in case you live under a rock and care about football news or haven't heard yet, Lamar Jackson is at an impasse with the Baltimore Ravens, revealing on social media that he had requested a trade from the Baltimore Ravens organization as far back as March 2nd. Obviously, that has not been fulfilled as he is still under the non-exclusive franchise tag at the moment. And the reason I haven't been commenting on it is essentially because there hasn't been any official movement on it yet. There's been obviously rumored teams that, who's in on Lamar Jackson, who is out on Lamar Jackson, even publicly stating that they're not going to be pursuing him, which is a bit strange on their part. Normally, those things aren't aired out for all the public to see. But as far as that goes, there hasn't been any official kind of things going on, just reporting on, a bunch of rumor and innuendo on who's in on Lamar Jackson and who isn't. So essentially what we've known for the past month is kind of what we've been knowing for this entire season, is that the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson are kind of far away on what they view to be a reasonable extension for him. And there's multiple reasons for this. Right now, he is on a non-exclusive franchise tag, which means that other teams can make offers, but the Ravens are able to match or receive 2 first-round picks in order for Lamar Jackson leaving. This does show the possibility that the Ravens are at least publicly seeming a bit open to the possibility of losing him. Now, maybe this is just kind of a bluff to see if teams are willing to give Lamar Jackson the deal that he wants, and maybe if a team does push the Ravens to sign the contract, then they eventually will match an offer that he receives. Or maybe this is just kind of a way to try to get 2 first-round picks, but they seem to be a fair trade for him. His contract demands are a little unprecedented. I know people look to the Browns' Deshaun Watson deal, but that was more of the Browns thrusting that contract upon Deshaun Watson, and not really Deshaun Watson demanding for that contract. That was just kind of the Browns seeming to be really desperate to find their quarterback that they want. This is Lamar Jackson's openly stating that I want this contract that is similar to this other contract that somebody else signed last season. Him not having an agent has been a topic of discussion. I'm not sure how much this plays into this role because I'm obviously not having conversations. I'm not a fly on the wall with the NFL, the Ravens front office and Lamar Jackson as they're having these contract negotiations that seem to have stalled. I know Lamar Jackson has a camp around him. It's not just solely him talking with the organization. I'm sure there's liaisons on his part as well, but not an official NFLPA agent assigned to him. Also, Lamar Jackson has had a lack of playoff success. I'm not saying that's all on Lamar Jackson, that's all his fault. It is a team game after all. But there are some weeks in the regular season that, there's some stretches of play where he's just not that great. He has put up, some consecutive stinkers every now and then. So there is reasons for the Ravens to be a little cautious when it comes to negotiating with him. But again, as a fan of an AFC North team that is not the Baltimore Ravens, I would personally want him to leave the division. I would definitely be happy about that. I would not miss seeing Lamar Jackson in the Baltimore Ravens uniform by any stretch of the imagination. So I am kind of trying to explore some scenarios that might make sense, that might see him in a different uniform. However, I do want to make the case for him to stay in Baltimore, kind of play devil's advocate against my own interest here. The Baltimore Ravens do currently hold his contract rights. If nothing happens in the offseason and things stay as they are right now, he will be playing for the Baltimore Ravens, or at least on their roster for at least this upcoming season. And it would be weird, as much as I would like to see it, it would be strange to see him in a different uniform than that Ravens purple. It just seems like that's kind of been the fit for him his entire career, because it has been. And on the Ravens side, if Lamar Jackson does leave, what is the backup plan at quarterback for him? Is it Tyler Huntley? We've seen that play out as far as, if you have questions about Lamar Jackson's play at quarterback and how successful he's been in the playoffs, Tyler Huntley has been kind of like that, but just worse. It's not like, I don't think Huntley is a terrible backup option. It's just that we've seen that if he's asked to be a consistent starter, he's probably not carrying a team very far. He's not carrying them into a deep playoff or anything like that, or at least doesn't seem like he is. And as far as the draft, the Ravens are picking at 22nd, I believe, and all the top quarterback prospects are probably going to be long gone by then. Now, that's not to say they can't find a quarterback that some scouts are overlooking or a diamond in the rough. Again, Lamar Jackson was the last pick of the first round, so there is certainly some precedence for quarterbacks going later in the first round or even later in the draft. I mean, Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant, and he had a tremendous rookie outing once he was thrust into action because of some injury. So there is possibility of finding a quarterback later in the first round that goes on to do tremendous things. It just doesn't happen all that often to where it becomes like normal. This is kind of a a less usual thing. And as far as the free agent market, I mean, most of the top free agent quarterbacks are kind of running dry. I mean, the top options are going to be guys like Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan. And I don't think that is a reliable market for success if that is your top options. But let's say the Ravens do go that route where they lose him to a team signing him to a deal in the offseason. The Ravens say, we'll take those 2 first-round picks. Where could he go that might make some sense? Trying to get him out of the AFC completely, I'm going with the Detroit Lions to talk about first. They had a tremendous end to last season after a pretty bad start, and they do seem to have something going. You know, Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes up there in Detroit, that front office and that coaching staff really does seem to have a lot of upward momentum. As far as their current quarterback situation, Jared Goff was pretty good for the Lions last year. I will give him some credit. It looked like that the Lions experiment of Jared Goff was going to be completely tank master Jared Goff here, but his play last season was pretty darn good, but I think it is probably the best you're going to get. You know, again, Jared Goff looking like a good quarterback, definitely more than serviceable, but I do feel like Lamar Jackson definitely pushes the ceiling for quarterback play much higher than Jared Goff ever could. And can you imagine this Lions team that is already having some upward momentum in things like free agent talks and stuff like that going into this offseason, landing a guy like Lamar Jackson, even though you do lose 2 first-round picks? I don't think the Lions are going to be in super rebuild mode for the foreseeable future, especially if they keep going on this upward trajectory. And having a guy like Lamar Jackson does, push that competitive window open, or at least gets it ready to be open in a much quicker time span than if you don't have a guy like Lamar Jackson. So I do feel like that could be kind of a match made in heaven where, Lamar Jackson, if he does go to the Lions, he would be playing with something to prove. Is he worth the contract that he would amass from this, signing a deal from that non-exclusive franchise tag? Would he be able to back that up? Detroit is a team that's been, they've been dealing with the disrespect all the time. Even though Jamal Williams left, he's saying, Detroit, don't play with us. There's only, it's all dog here. So hopefully, that if that does happen, again, I want Lamar Jackson leaving the AFC. That would be perfect for me. Hopefully that's the situation I'm rooting for personally, and I think that would be a really fun story heading into the next season. Now, a team that might also make sense is the Indianapolis Colts. They've obviously been searching for an Andrew Luck level player ever since he retired and have failed time and time again. Now, I'm not saying Lamar Jackson is going to be what Andrew Luck was, these are obviously very different quarterback prototypes, but he would certainly be more of a sure things than guys like Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and Matt Ryan have been for the Colts in the past. Jim Irsay has talked about this scenario in the past. He did mention that the future is something to be considered, that this might be, when you're considering signing a guy to a big contract, you do have to consider the future of the team. So that kind of leans toward the side of maybe they're going to err on the side of caution and not go for it. But he did mention that the actual dollars isn't an issue for him because he can just throw money around because he's an NFL owner. He did bring up the Los Angeles Rams' current struggles, but I do feel like whenever a team brings up, the Rams are struggling, they're really paying for that Super Bowl, they fail to mention that the Rams won a Super Bowl. That's kind of the whole goal of the game, is to win a Super Bowl. If you have to, struggle for a couple years after that, then I think winning a Super Bowl is well worth it. And also, another thing giving that this scenario a bit more wind is that the Colts don't really have any obvious starting quarterback currently in their system. Unless you count Gardner Minshew, maybe the Colts can trade up in the draft for one of the more high-end quarterback prospects. But again, trading for Lamar Jackson, trading up in the draft are currently both in the realm of they haven't happened yet, and we're just kind of talking about it, something that could happen. So to me, they're both kind of in the same realm of possibility. And right now, again, Gardner Minshew is probably your best bet starting quarterback. And while I love Minshew mania, I feel like he can pull decent performances and win you some games here and there. I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to push your ceiling over the top as far as quarterback play. And the last situation I'm going to talk about that might be a little bit of a stretch is the New York Jets. This is one of the ones that I think might be the most interesting because it kind of deals with some betrayal of the Green Bay Packers, as they've been rumored to be in on Aaron Rodgers this entire offseason. Rumor that's pretty much been confirmed by Aaron Rodgers himself. He confirmed his interest in going to New York on the Pat McAfee show. The Jets have been acquiring free agents that Aaron Rodgers has liked in the past. So it's no secret that they've been trying to get this trade cooking for a while now. But for whatever reason, this trade does seem to be at a bit of a standstill, and New York could make this move out of spite, which I think would just be hilarious. And I feel like that would be awesome. That would just be cool to see. You know, the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers both unhappy that the Jets just decided to go with their backup plan instead. But I think where this trade loses a little bit of its legs, and where I think I saved this for last because it is kind of the most reachy thing I'm saying here, the issue is kind of being the price for the New York Jets. Now, the contention with the Aaron Rodgers trade does seem to be that the Jets don't really feel like giving Green Bay a first-round pick. They would rather give them a second. Whereas for this trade with Lamar Jackson, they would have to give Baltimore at least 2 firsts, and that's just if they just sign him on his non-exclusive franchise tag and they take it. That's not even if they bother to negotiate in trade talks directly with the Ravens. Then the Ravens might even ask for more picks. But again, that's pretty much it. That's the only scenarios I'm going to talk about. I know there are more teams that could sign Lamar Jackson, but I don't want this video to be too long. You've probably already heard me talk long enough. So thank you all for watching this video. If you did make it this far, I will see you at the next one.